21 is back to the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers making their selection in the first round here. Pittsburgh still don't know what they're doing at quarterback. I bet they hope they can get Aaron Rodgers into some black and gold. What are they going to do at 21, though?
I think he's coming here. I mean, if you heard him on the McAfee show today, all signs are pointing towards that happening. And I think we all know to win in this league, to win big in this league, you need an elite quarterback. And Garrett even asked me that during the number 2 pick reactions. What are the Steelers doing at quarterback? You just asked me that. I mean, that's the general question surrounding the Steelers right now. And with this 21st pick, I got answers. I already said for 2025, it's Aaron Rodgers. But what about the future? It's Jalen Milroe. Arguably the most gifted quarterback in this class. Has a cannon for an arm. The running ability is off the charts. And people act like he's all upside. Boom or bust. He's unproven. But let's look at what he did at the SEC for these last 2 years. People talk about accuracy issues. Hey, he still threw for 65% completion percentage. His junior year, 35 total touchdowns, only 6 picks, led Alabama to the Final Four. And then his senior year in a whole new system had 36 total touchdowns and 11 picks. Like, come on. Yes, there are some things he needs to work on, no doubt. But with Aaron Rodgers being here, hopefully, he's going to have some time to sit, develop for a year or two. And who better to learn from than a Hall of Famer, 4-time MVP than Aaron Rodgers? And even if Rodgers isn't here, I'm not going to front. I'm good with Mason Rudolph. Mason can cook. We saw him at the end of 2023. He did some damage against these AFC North teams. They would know. Yeah, we're not asking Milroe to start day one. I think that's the ideal scenario for him. He can get his game right, develop behind the scenes, and then in 2026, 2027, it's time.
So 2 questions for you real quick. We've seen, a guy like a Lamar Jackson come into the league as a raw prospect that needed to work on his throwing mechanics, that needed to do all this other stuff. We've seen him become an MVP in the National Football League. We've also seen guys come out like an Anthony Richardson, who in my opinion right now would be considered a bust and a failure. Having a guy like Jalen Milroe coming in, do you see more of Anthony Richardson or do you see more of Lamar Jackson in his future if you had to give me an answer right now?
I'm going Lamar Jackson because, as I said, Jalen Milroe actually proven in college. I mean, I went over the numbers, whereas Anthony Richardson, he didn't even sniff that in his, season? Yeah, it was only like a season and maybe a couple games at Florida. So, yeah, with Milroe, he actually proved that he could play at a pretty high level in the SEC already, and he's still got the upside. That's why I'm really intrigued with him. Guys like Anthony Richardson, guys like Trey Lance, getting picked in the top 5 with less proven in college, and I'm getting at least some of that proven from Milroe, showing that leadership, taking that Alabama team, but still has that type of upside that those players possess. So yeah, I'm leaning more Lamar Jackson if you're asking between the two.
All right, sticking to your guns. I like it. Now, let's go to your principal rival, the Baltimore Ravens. What do you think about this pick? You guys hit a home run on a guy just like this in 2018. What do you think about this draft choice in 2025?
Yeah, I thought there were 2 spots Pittsburgh could go with this, either quarterback or defensive line. And I think the defensive line class is deep enough where if you want to take a quarterback here at 21, there's enough depth in this class to go get a star at defensive line. Now, for Lamar Jackson, I think what Pittsburgh's plan here is with Aaron Rodgers coming for 2025 and then Jalen Milroe being in the future, Lamar sat behind Joe Flacco for half of his rookie season, and I think that really did end up helping him. So having the tutelage of Mike Tomlin in there and obviously Aaron Rodgers, assuming he goes, I think this is how you handle the quarterback situation outside of maybe what has been the new norm in the NFL, like with Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, where everybody wants the next CJ Stroud. Everyone wants the next Jaden Daniels, who had that great rookie season, but sometimes they need a little more development. So I think Jalen Milroe's a solid pick here for Pittsburgh. It's not going to help immediately, but I think when Pittsburgh needs a long-term answer at quarterback, and I think that with Sanders and Cam Ward off the board, teams are going to be starting to try to trade up for quarterbacks, and Pittsburgh gets ahead of the game here.
So Cincinnati, I'm going to ask you a question as well. Would you rather see Pittsburgh pick Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart?
Jackson Dart. I do think the Jalen Milrows of the world, though, long term, you need a lot. Like to compare him to Lamar Jackson, I think is very unfair because what they did is structure the whole entire team around him, and Baltimore drafts better. And I just think that Anthony Richardson, although the comparison to the college it's not a fair comparison, I guess, to compare their collegiate careers. I think his profile and how he delivers the football is more closer to that. And I think the pick is probably justified, but that's the nature of the beast in the NFL. It's where you're constantly searching to go give you a quarterback that can be a game manager, that can take you to the playoffs and actually win you some games. And it's not that simple as like a lot of teams make it look. And I think the Steelers are going to find out that the hard way with Jalen Milrow.
Understood. In Cleveland, your thoughts about this selection?
This is major boomer bust. Either the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get him, and they're going to be a menace to deal with in the division if he turns out to be all right, or they'll be back at the drawing board drafting again. I mean, they had, Big Ben, and prior to Big Ben, it was like Terry Bradshaw. Like, they don't miss very much on quarterbacks as of, in the previous 20 years. But, this is going to be a tough one. Jalen Milrow is not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was much more polished quarterback, much more polished thrower of the football. He is electric, and I will give them credit. Taking him here is a good place to take him because you can sit him behind somebody and let him chill out for a little bit. But he does have an elite skill set, and that's his legs and his athleticism. And besides Cam Ward being able to throw the football, I had him as the second biggest skill set in terms of his legs in the draft. So it's boom or bust, but, we'll see what the Steelers can do with him.
Listen, man, I heard Big Ben. I heard Terry Bradshaw. Don't forget Neil O'Donnell took Pittsburgh to a Super Bowl appearance in 1995, too. All right? Let's not forget Neil O'Donnell. He did throw two terrible interceptions in that football game. He did throw two terrible interceptions in that football game, and there were some conspiracy theories going around. But Neil O'Donnell did have a solid year in 1995 at least. Anyway, now we're going to send it back to Cleveland, the number 2 overall selection. We just talked about the Browns trading back into the first round to number 24, but this is by far their more important pick. What do you think the Browns are going to do, and who are you going to take at number 2?
Well, I think the draft starts right here. A lot of teams will be lining up behind us to figure out what they're going to do after we make this pick. But quarterback is a need on our board as well. Cam Ward, obviously, in our evaluation, was the top guy on the board. So we looked at a lot of different quarterbacks, and we did not have that big of a difference between some of our second-tier prospects like Shedeur Sanders. We've evaluated Tyler Shuck and some of those other guys, and even the guys later in Will Howard. We don't have that big of a gap on those guys. So when Cam Ward is off the board, we took our pick, ran to the podium, and we took what we believe is the best player in the draft. And we throw the word generation around a lot, but this guy might be it. We're going to take Travis Hunter, wide receiver and defensive back out of the University of Colorado.
Interesting pick. Now, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of speculation around this pick in general. A ton of speculation. But Travis Hunter, you said the word generational. I don't like using that word either. But this guy on both sides of the ball in college was tremendous. Heisman Trophy winner. Is not really that big of a player, 6 foot 188 like you see on your screen, but he makes things happen on both sides of the football. Abdul Carter, also another guy that's really rumored to be selected with this pick. I guess we'll see where they go in real life, but you can't really complain getting one of the best talents we've seen coming out of the draft in the last few years. Now, let's send it over to the division rivals, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and the Baltimore Ravens, licking their chops after seeing this pick. Maybe not the pick that a lot of people anticipate, but I don't know if you can complain with it. Let's start in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the draft does start in Cleveland. And, even if the word generationalism was going to be used, I'd say polarizing. And I think Cleveland needs a polarizing talent like Travis Hunter on their team. I mean, they need something to go right for them. I think for Travis Hunter, It's just about the situation that he's going to go into. I think he needs to go into a situation where a team is going to use him the way that, one, he wants to be used, and two, the way that he has to be used. Now, Abdul Carter's intriguing at this pick, but I know there's injury questions about the foot. But with the trade that the Vikings and the Browns made, you talk about quarterback, and is it a Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe? I think that pick, if it's not a running back, could be used on a quarterback to help, obviously, take away some of the pain from that Deshaun Watson deal that just backfired in so many different ways.
Now let's send it over to Pittsburgh. And my question for the Steelers is, Travis Hunter came out a couple days ago and said he wouldn't even play football if whoever drafts him wouldn't let him play both sides of the ball. Is that something that would fly with Mike Tomlin as the head coach? Pittsburgh, I believe you're muted. If you want to unmute real quick.
I think I'm unmuted. I think
there we
I'm good
go.
now.
Got it. Gotcha. Yep. Perfect.
Sorry. Would Mike Tomlin let that fly? I think we would actually give him a chance to play both ways, but we're not getting Travis Hunter here. We're never bad enough to be picking in the top 5 like the Browns traditionally are. And this Travis Hunter thing, it is unprecedented, but I think it's unprecedented for a reason. Like, no one's done this really in the course of NFL history to be able to play both ways like this, the way that Travis Hunter did at Colorado. And I don't think the Browns are going to somehow unlock this and be capable of handling a player playing both receiver and quarterback. And we'll hear people say, but he did it in college, right? He just won the Heisman. I feel like going up against Kansas State and Texas Tech and those receivers and cornerbacks are going to be a lot different than George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. And then whenever you play the Ravens, you got to chase Zay Flowers all over the field. And then, whenever the Ravens are running the ball, they're going to be having Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry running it your way. And then the next series, you got to go to receiver, and you got guys like Darius Slay, JPJ, press coverage on you. Like, I just don't know how it's going to last, how this is going to be a sustainable thing for Travis Hunter. I mean, no one's done it before. I just don't think this is going to happen with the Browns, and the organization is going to be able to handle something like this, and they're going to be prepared for it. I think it's going to be more of a focus on how many snaps Travis Hunter's playing and how he's being managed versus just playing football and winning games.
All right.
I'm going to need y'all to find a quarterback.
Pessimistic in Pittsburgh.
Aaron Rodgers.
Pessimistic in Pittsburgh. How does Cincinnati feel?
I think the guy's a tremendous talent. Travis Hunter, he's had a lot of comps this week. They've even compared his footwork to Chad Ochocinco, which I agree with. If you listen to former wide receivers in the NFL like a Steve Smith, they talked about his route running. And there are a lot of corners. I thought the guy from the Steelers was cooking up until he told me about a 33-30 old Darius Slay. Like, I think that's a matchup that Travis Hunters of the world would exploit, like 1,000%. So in my mind, I just feel as though, like, Travis Hunter, a lot of people are overlooking of how good of a talent he is. I think he is. I think the $1 million question is, what is the quarterback? What's the system? And how does it work around him? I think there are going to be matchups that he'll be able to flourish in. I think he's amazing in zone coverage. I think he can make plays on the ball. There are going to be matchups where, as the guy pointed out from the Steelers right here, that if he's going up against Jamar Chases of the world, I don't like his chances. But
yeah,
I
just
think
him
that
and DK Metcalf on verticals all day.
It could happen that way. And, I just think that those are the things that, the people that get paid a lot of money, they got to figure out.
Now, the AFC North, routinely one of the most fun divisions to keep track of in the entire National Football League. We'll be talking to the rest of the representatives when they make their picks. But now we move to 17, Cincinnati. The Bengals missing out on a playoff berth by about that much last season. A very topsy-turvy year, which saw them start very slow, which has become, I guess, an annual thing in Cincinnati. Closing very hot, but it was too little, too late for the Bengals. Losing a couple pieces this offseason, but locking up arguably their 3 most important pieces, Higgins, Chase, Burrow, very, very long term on very, very big money. What do you do at 17, though, here?
Behind the scenes, let me tell you guys, There was a lot of willing and dealing. Shout out to my guys with the Lions. We had a deal in place. Shout out to the Cardinals for not taking this guy at pick 17. You made a comment that you said that the biggest steal of the draft just happened just now, or whatever the pick before with Jalen Walker. I disagree. I think the biggest steal of the draft is happening right now at pick 17. We're going to change the face of this franchise with this deal, with this guy that I believe is going to be the Jamar Chase of our defense.
All right, and who is that guy going to be at 17?
This guy is going to be none other than linebacker from the Alabama Crimson Tide, Jahad Campbell. At pick 17, 120 tackles, 5 sacks. You can line him up everywhere. Versatile piece that you can go and create an identity on defense. The physicality is there. The mobility to be able to, or the agility to be able to run and chase down mobile quarterbacks like a Lamar Jackson, perhaps. Blitzing all over the place. This guy gives me an identity, and it gives me something that the Bengals have not had probably since Geno Atkins, a playmaker.
And he has great speed, too. You alluded to it. He ran a 4.52. He stands 6'3", 235, 117 tackles, including 12 for loss and 6 sacks. Last year, second-team All-America, first-team All-SEC. The Bengal defense has lost a lot of crucial pieces over the last couple of seasons. They look to rebuild that unit, starting with Campbell at 17. Now, the rest of their division, teams that traditionally have all been built on great defense. Let's get their thoughts on this pick for Cincinnati. Baltimore, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, look, after watching Baltimore and Cincinnati play 2 games against each other last year and how offensive those games were, I mean, I think for Cincinnati, you have so many holes on defense. Why not get a guy that can play multiple at a high level? You got to start somewhere. And I mean, look, if Trey Hendrickson, if that whole situation does end up working out and Cincinnati brings him back and he's on the roster, signs an extension, I think Campbell's someone with his athleticism. I know a lot of people in Cleveland talk about JOK as like, oh, is he going to be the guy that can match up with Lamar Jackson on defense? I think every defense needs one of those in this division. So I think Cincinnati could have gone a couple different ways. Campbell is one of the guys I had my eye on for him. Actually, I would have liked if he fell to 27, but my plans were foiled there.
Cleveland, what do you have to say about Cincinnati?
Listen, it's a solid pick. You look at what they have on defense. They've had a lot of people moving around. Sam Hubbard retires. We don't know what's up with Trey Hendrickson. We know what Cincinnati can do on offense. Joe Burrow's not the problem. They finally ponied up and paid their guys. They got Higgins and Jamar Chase back. So you know what they're going to be able to do offensively. It's all about the defense and how well the defense is going to be able to stop some of these other teams for them to get over the hump. So you had a lot of holes. You start in the middle. You got a guy that can move around sideline to sideline, especially when you got Lamar Jackson in this division. Not to mention, if you want to go further, you got Josh Allen, some other mobile quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes. So I like the pick. Very solid pick for the Cincinnati Bengals.
So when Cincinnati went on their run to the Super Bowl in 2021 and when they got back to the AFC title game in 2022, it was because of their defense playing great, timely football. During the regular season, they weren't great statistically by any means, but they stepped up when it mattered most. And if Cincinnati wants to get back to the mountaintop in the AFC, I think that's going to need to happen again. And I think Campbell might be a guy that helps them get them there. Now, Pittsburgh, final thought before we move to the Seattle Seahawks in pick 18.
Yeah, Bengals need help on defense pretty bad. I don't know about the value, though, with the pick being a linebacker. I think linebackers slowly turning towards like the running back of defense with, just 2025 NFL and how it's being played on the perimeter. They need help all across the board on defense, but maybe they could have done better by going quarterback or something more on the perimeter. It makes sense, though, as to why, since he was thinking about trading back, just because some of the corners that already went and who's available on the board. But, I don't know about linebacker this early. I don't know if the value's there.
All right. Well, 2 good reviews, 1 iffy one at that. As you know, the Cleveland Browns traded with the Minnesota Vikings for this 24th pick. Minnesota moving out of the first round. They get the 33rd, 67th, and 179th overall selections. Cleveland back in the first round after selecting number 2 overall, Travis Hunter. Who are they taking at number 24?
Well, this is easy money. We was waiting there. We was nervous for a second because Pittsburgh could have took this guy off the board, but they chose Jalen Milroe. We're gonna go. Listen, we're going back to the Kevin Stefanski playbook. We about to run this football. We're gonna run play action through it. Jerry Jeudy had a breakout year last year. We already got who we feel is the best player in the draft, Travis Hunter, who's a two-way star already. Get the jerseys ready. Listen, we running in with the pick at quarterback from Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, with pick number 24, and we'll redshirt him. He'll sit behind Joe Flacco. We'll even play Kenny Pickett. We'll put that red shirt on him and be ready to go in 26.
What a quarterback room that is. Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and now Jackson Dart. A lot of people very, very high on Dart. This is sort of a polarizing quarterback draft class, honestly. A lot of people, I think Cam Ward, the consensus number 1. Some people are higher than others on Sanders. Some people are higher than others on Jackson Dart. I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. But Cleveland has been in a weird situation at quarterback ever since making, that fateful trade for Deshaun Watson 2 seasons ago. But Dart, you can't argue with his production in college. Guy went 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completed almost 70% of his passes for 4,279 yards. First team All-SEC last year, Gator Bowl MVP last year as well. I think I like the pick. It really is an insurance policy going forward at the quarterback position, assuming Deshaun Watson can't figure it out, assuming Joe Flacco's not going to be there for more than a year or two maybe, but a very solid pick at that. Now, the AFC North, man, I'll tell you right now, 2 quarterbacks selected. Pittsburgh takes Jalen Milroe, 21. Cincinnati and Baltimore obviously have their franchise guys. But can Jackson Dart be the franchise guy for Cleveland going forward? Cincinnati, your thoughts?
I'm on the fence on this one. If it had been another franchise that doesn't have a history of ruining quarterbacks, then maybe I might feel a certain type of way. But watching them select them, it just feels different. I don't know. He talked about Stefanski. Who knows if Stefanski will even be there or how long he'll be there? We don't know. So I just don't know, unless it's like the number 1, like a Cam Ward or somebody that, like, I just don't think it's possible. Until I see it, I think at that spot, that's a good spot to get him, whether it was him or Milroe. I think that's the perfect spot to go get a quarterback that, doesn't have top 5 potential. And I mean, it is what it is. And then it's up to you to coach him and put him in the best spots possible.
That being said, and, I've brought up a few poor draft picks in the past on this stream so far, but the last time the Browns took an SEC quarterback around 24, we all remember what happened there. Baltimore, what are your thoughts about this draft choice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Jackson Dart as others, but I think that, again, it's exactly a quarterback if you're going to do it. I think it is a perfect trade up scenario for Cleveland because this is the area where teams are going to want to trade up. And so if you want to sit Jackson Dart for a year behind guys like Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, again, that's what I think should be done with quarterbacks in this range instead of putting them in, okay, you got to go out there and perform. It lessens the expectations and allows them to learn. There are a lot of good players still on the board here. So again, if Cleveland believes in Jackson Dart and that's their guy, then I'm okay with it. But I think that there are some other ways Cleveland could have gone with this selection. I like Jalen Milroe there. Obviously, Pittsburgh snuck up and took him before Cleveland got the opportunity. But I think that this is the range we'll probably see the rest of the quarterbacks go off the board, and all these other teams are going to have to turn their attention to Tyler Shuck and others.
And it is funny, too, because 3 trades were made, 23, 24, 25. And I think this is an area of the draft where teams will look to trade up for these quarterbacks. So I think this is playing out just like it will a week from now. Pittsburgh, final thoughts on the Jackson Dart selection?
I'm with Cincinnati. I'll believe it when I see it. in terms of the Browns getting the quarterback position right. I think they would do better just by giving Pitt legend Kenny Pickett, the keys and see what he can do than drafting another unproven guy in Jackson Dart and getting him in the fold with Flacco and Pickett. Why not just give Pickett the chance? But unfortunately for Pickett, because he's with the Browns, like I don't necessarily see that working out for him either with his career. I'm one of the guys because, he's a Pitt guy. Also, he was drafted to the Steelers. I'm one of the guys that actually still thinks he has a chance to do something in this league. But now that he's with the Browns, it's going to be tough. And I think it's also going to be tough for a Jackson Dart.
Now, Browns, before we close out this pick, if you had to tell me right now who's going to be starting for your football team in September, I mean, I just saw a report earlier today that suggested that Deshaun Watson could be back. I mean, I don't know how. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, now you have Jackson Dart. Who's starting for this team?
It'll be a quarterback competition, like
clearly,
the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Clearly, but I'm telling you, hey, who is it going to be? Who's going to come out on top? I don't want the competition talk. Who's it going to be?
Joe Flacco.
I like that.
Flaccovelli himself will be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns opening game 1 with a bandana on.
I like it, and I hope he is wearing a bandana at that. Now, pick 27. The Baltimore Ravens, after losing at home in the AFC title game in 2023, they come back in 2024 and had another disappointing playoff defeat at Buffalo. They have the National Football League's MVP, Lamar Jackson, of 2023. In my opinion, should have won it again in 2024. But what do they do at 27 to address their needs?
Yeah, I don't think that this board could have fallen any more perfectly for the Ravens, especially because they've given themselves essentially positional freedom when it comes to the draft. They don't necessarily need anything so badly that they need to stray away from their board. I think you could talk about defensive line, corner, safety, edge, even on the offensive side of the ball, you can talk about offensive line. But there are a couple of guys in the secondary on the board, and I know that some people might think one is a better fit, but I'm going to go with Nicky Manwari, the safety out of South Carolina. Now, a lot of people say, well, the Ravens have Kyle Hamilton. What are you doing taking Nicky Manwari? The Ravens are a positionless defense in a lot of different ways. And I think with Manwari, 6'3", 220 pounds, and we saw one of the best combines ever for a player of his size. And I think that everybody's looking for their Kyle Hamilton, their Minka Fitzpatrick, Derwin James, of guys who can play up at the line for you, can blitz off of the edge, and even worry. I think with him and Kyle Hamilton in the Zach Orr defense, Baltimore can move him around. And I know that with Hamilton there, spending another first-round pick on a safety might not be in some people's cards. But the Ravens right now are waiting on Darius Washington, who has not signed his restricted free agent tender yet. I think that ideally you're able to move Hamilton around like a Swiss Army knife. You can put Nicky Manwari maybe as the strong safety and Darius Washington, assuming he does re-sign with Baltimore at that free safety spot. The upside for Nicky Manwari is absolutely immense, and I think for Baltimore, they want to take a swing on a guy like that if he's available.
And Manwari is almost a throwback defensive player in his size. I mean, the guy is a big dude playing safety. You don't see that a lot these days. I feel like defensive backs, like I said earlier, have gotten smaller and smaller, as the years have progressed to try to keep up with the speed of receiver. But this guy's a big dude back there at safety. He was also a first-team All-America selection at South Carolina this past year. Cleveland, what do you think about the Baltimore Ravens, your former team, picking Nicky Manwari?
Man, is Ozzie Newsome still snooping around here? Because, listen, this pick has his name written all over it, man. I love this pick. I ain't even going to hate. You can move him in the sub package. You can put him at linebacker. He can cover guys. He can spy on people. He's fast as heck. And when you throw Kyle Hamilton in with that, like, they got size and elite length in the back end, and you know how the Ravens play. They're going to be physical, they're going to be fast, and they just keep adding these type players. These are hybrids, and that's where the league is going to, hybrid players that can cover, that can tackle, and can do a lot of different things. I love the pick. I ain't even going to lie. A+.
Now, if there's a team that has a great history of safety play, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are your thoughts on Manwari going to your division rival Baltimore?
That's right. Shout out Troy Polamalu. Shout out Donnie Shell. Shout out Ryan Clark. Yeah, he's a good player. I'm not even going to front. But for the Ravens, they could use some help at linebacker. I don't think Trenton Simpson's really lived up to the bill. And then at edge rusher as well. I mean, you might need some insurance for Owe. Ojabo hasn't lived up either. So, like, it's tough. I mean, I don't blame him for making this pick, but I think they do need some help on the front seven for the future, because I don't see, like, Kyle Van Noy keeping it up to the degree that he's been able to either. But even more, he's solid. I'm not even going to front.
And a last word to the Cincinnati Bengals, who really need help at safety. I don't know if you're qualified to talk about safety play right now, but let's talk about it.
We got some guys there. Shout out to the Ravens who sent us Geno Stone. I don't know how that that happened or transpired. I will say this, Nick Emenwari. Had I not picked Jahad Campbell, I was going to go that route later in the draft. We do have safeties; they're just not at this level. His RAS score out of all qualifying strong safeties is the #1 out of 1,079 safeties since 1987. He's one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I think this is the best pick in the whole entire draft that I've seen thus far. I hope this doesn't happen in real life. I do think in real life, I keep on thinking the Steelers might draft him, but that, to me, out of all the picks I've seen, that's the scariest one that I've seen this whole entire time. Pairing him with Kyle Hamilton would be disgusting.